Now, when analyzing climbing movement, there are 5 key components that I look at: speed, hold contact, intensity, style, as well as alignment. So let's go into speed. Watch this clip of a climber climbing statically. Now, this is a chosen climbing style, and some climbers will climb statically on all routes. Some climbers will climb statically selectively during a route. And it's important to understand the baseline speed of a climber so that we can further interpret how and why they develop their injuries. Now, if you notice that a climber is climbing statically, you'll want to apply some type of drill to increase their movement repertoire. Static motions, although helpful while climbing to control, don't always allow a climber to cut loose. So an interesting exercise would be the pull and clap. And with a pull and clap, you're starting with an easy route. And every time that you pull to move to the next hold, you clap your hands. It's a little bit of a goofy drill, and it's audible performing it in a climbing gym. But it's important for the climber to start to develop that elasticity and that dynamic power while climbing. So let's go ahead and watch this clip of a climber who would be climbing too statically, then applying a movement drill of pull and clap to climb more dynamically. Now let's look at the other end of the spectrum. We now have a climber who's climbing too dynamically. Let's watch this clip. Climbing with too much dynamic motion can shock load or overload the system. So it's important to teach climbers who climb too dynamically another skill set or an option to move more statically. A drill that's often used that's helpful for this is the hover drill. Now with the hover drill, you'll want to do it on an easy route or have the climber do it on an easy route. And as they climb, they're going to hover and wait 3 seconds before they grasp the next hold. They'll then move, they'll hover their hand right before they contact the hold and wait about 3 seconds until they grasp the hold. It allows them to learn self-control and ability to maintain overall body tension while moving from hold to hold. It can treat and show the climber how to move in a more static style. Let's take a look at the hover drill. The climber starts on an easy route or boulder problem. They will climb and hover their hand 3 seconds over every hold before grabbing the hold. This forces the climber to perform each move statically while they determine the best body position before they move. This is a great drill to train more static motion for a climber that climbs too dynamically. Now we talked about static as well as dynamic climbing, but it's also important to think about route speed as well as cadence. I want you to watch this clip. Now I'm on the left, and this is the first time I ever got on a speed wall. I want you to compare and contrast while I'm racing my friend Kelly, the different speeds that we're climbing, and also the cadence of motion and movement in between holds, and the overall speed, which is the time, and as well the different sticking points when one of us speeds up and slows down. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Are you guys ready? Set, go! Come on!
Well, you saw that Kelly obviously beat me. She had a faster time. And this was both of our first times on a speed wall. And after that, I subsequently got a little bit obsessed, and I kept running laps on it, lowering my time incrementally, and I raced Kelly again, and she beat me again. So it's interesting to see that while climbing, we have our overall route speed, which you saw. Kelly beat me. She had a quicker time. And we have our move cadence. Well, as you saw towards the end, I started getting a little quicker and increasing the cadence of my movement, but I still lost. So as we go through this, we can look at climbers on a route and start to determine their route speed and their cadence. When we look at a static climber, typically they'll have a slower route speed and also a slower move cadence. We look at a dynamic climber, oftentimes if they can maintain that dynamic elasticity throughout the route, that movement, they'll have a faster route speed and cadence. But where I'm really interested in looking at is climbers that change their move cadence throughout a route. Maybe some movements that are easier, they move a lot quicker. Maybe some movements that are harder and more cruxy, they move a lot slower. And while this is important for climbing performance and energy efficiency, it really allows us to hone in on a climber and potentially put them in different scenarios to train these different speeds so that it can utilize more efficiency with movement, but also try to prevent injuries. Let's take a look at these two clips. This first clip, we have a speed climber race, and you can see they obviously are much more trained than Kelly and I are in these movements. And you look at the top speed climbers in the world, and they're moving much faster. They are running up the wall. Now, let's take a look at a clip here. And we have some sport climbing. And I want you to pay attention not just to the speed of the route, but also the cadence of movement. And if you were to take an application, a metronome, you can start to map or quantify how the climber is moving and their patterns. You can take an app, such as a metronome beat app, and you could measure the beat of every arm movement. And you could start to see when the climber is struggling, when they're climbing smoothly, and you can find a consistent metronome or speed for that climber during certain sections. And then you can compare that to their overall speed while climbing the route. Now, if you have this data, this is objective data, overall speed, as well as this metronome timing of this cadence in between movement. But you can also have the climber check in subjectively. And a great way to do this is a Sloth monkey drill, a drill I learned from Chris Hampton of Power Company Climbing. The climber will select a route or boulder problem that they will need to climb 2 different times. The first time, when they climb this route, they'll climb it slow and controlled, just like a sloth, paying attention to nuances of movement and slowly making their way up to the top of the problem. They'll drop back down, and the second time, they will climb it quickly. They'll use momentum, and they'll drive their motions just like a monkey would while it's climbing. They'll climb to the top of the route, they'll drop down, and then they'll compare their styles. And it's a way to check in with your body and start to see how you're feeling and how you move with quicker speeds and slower speeds. This information is essential to give climbers the tools to diversify their speed of climbing as well as their route cadence. By understanding move cadence and route speed, as well as dynamic and static climbing styles, you can watch a climber move and as a medical provider start to determine the reasons why a climber is moving a certain way. You can use this information to broaden their style, their skills, and their ability to either shift the pendulum towards a more static technique when needed, or towards a more dynamic technique or style when needed. Irregularities between climbing movements, especially during cruxes, will allow you to hone in on move cadence, and the overall route speed will give you information on the efficiency of the climber.